Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of Second Kings. Today we're in Second Kings chapter 20, and we continue our study about Hezekiah. Now, this is going to be the last chapter dealing with Hezekiah, but here Hezekiah is going to become sick, and there are going to be a couple different layers of ramifications for what happens to Hezekiah here in this chapter. So let's look at some of the things that we can learn from the text of chapter 20. The first thing is when we deal with Hezekiah's sickness. Hezekiah was one who was a faithful servant of God. God made that clear over the course of the last couple of chapters. And here in chapter 20, Hezekiah falls sick. And Isaiah comes to tell him that he is not going to get better. He is going to die. And that was what the Lord had said. Hezekiah then turns in verse 2 and he prays to the Lord. And he asks the Lord to remember how he has walked before him and he has been loyal to him and all that he has done. And before Isaiah can get out of the palace, the Lord comes to him and tells him to go back. And he will send him back and he will tell Hezekiah that Hezekiah is going to have another 15 years, that the Lord has changed his mind and that he will recover. One of the greatest lessons from this particular chapter is the fact that the Lord does actually listen to our prayers. There are some people who believe whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and that our prayers actually don't really have anything to do with it except for the fact to just make us feel better. But here, Hezekiah's life and prayer illustrates that the Lord does answer our prayers. Now, that doesn't mean that every time we ask for something, or every time somebody is sick, or every time every little thing happens, that it's going to change just because we pray about it, or that what we want is going to happen just because we ask for it. However, what it does mean is that the Lord listens, is that the Lord takes into account the things that we pray for and the things that we're asking for. But also remember, Hezekiah has been a faithful servant. He has faithfully served God throughout the time that he has been king. And he has never strayed away from his service to God in all that time. And so he has, in many ways, as we would put it, earned the respect of God for the things that he has done and for the way that he has lived his life. We need to recognize that God does listen to our prayers and God will respond to our prayers. But that doesn't mean God is always going to say yes, nor does it mean that God is always going to give us what we want. But it does mean he will listen. And it does mean that sometimes circumstances may change because of the prayers that we offer. And so we have that lesson here from the first section of chapter 20. Later on in chapter 20, you have a situation where Hezekiah is going to receive a visit from the people of Babylon. And emissaries from Babylon are going to come in, and they are going to check on Hezekiah. The king has heard that he has been sick, and they are going to come just on an official visit to see how Hezekiah is doing, to wish him well, and so on. And Hezekiah is going to respond by showing them everything that he has, all of his wealth, all of the gold and all of the silver and all of the precious ointments and all of the armory, all of their power and strength and might and all of their glory. He shows Babylon everything. And so Isaiah comes to him and he says, who were these people? Not that he didn't know, but just for conversation purposes. Hezekiah tells him who they were, and he says, well, what have you shown them? And he says, I have shown them everything. There is nothing that they have not seen. And Isaiah is going to respond, and he's going to say, "The days are coming when all that is in your house and what your fathers have accumulated until this day shall be carried to Babylon, and nothing shall be left." This is going to be a prophecy of the coming carrying away by Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. Now, it's going to be another 100 years before these things are going to take place. But the promise and the prophecy is going to be made. And this is going to be a foretelling of what will occur. Hezekiah's response is kind of interesting because he makes the statement that at least there will be peace and truth in my days. In other words, at least it's not going to happen right now. And there's a couple of different ways to look at it, but I think the sense that you get from Hezekiah is that there is nothing that he can do about it at this point. There is nothing that he can do about what's going to happen deep into the future. And that at least in his days, at least in the days where he has control, there will be peace and truth. Hezekiah has a moment where he is willing to show everything off. Some have considered it a moment of pride and ego. Others have just considered it a situation where he has been overly neighborly. And yet at the same time, God is going to use this as a means to prophesy and to lay out to Hezekiah a glimpse of what is to come. Because right now, Babylon is not the world power that they will be when Nebuchadnezzar comes and takes Jerusalem. But they will become that. And the Lord is going to show Hezekiah what they will become. These are some of the things that I've seen in 2 Kings chapter 20. I hope that they are beneficial to you. Next time we'll come back and we will begin looking at 2 Kings chapter 21. I hope you'll join us then. But until then, have a great day.